Hello, Scarecrow here. The holidays are upon us, and a lot of people are going to be doing a lot of traveling, and if you're anything at all like me, you're going to want to bring your drones with you everywhere you go. Now, I'm not an expert on the fine print of TSA rules and safety regulations, but I did spend a great deal of time this year traveling as a cameraman for Rotor Riot. It put me on a plane probably 20 times at least, and I feel like there are a couple of things that I've learned along the way that might help save you a little bit of time and or trouble when dealing with the TSA and airports in general. Before I even get down to the table and show you what I normally bring and how I pack it into my bag, there are a couple of things as far as dealing with the TSA on a person-to-person level that you might want to know before you go storming into an airport. Let's pretend like you packed up your bag and you're marching up to the TSA counter, happy as can be, and there's an ominous figure standing before you. What do? The first thing out of your mouth, in the kindest voice you could possibly ever muster, is, "Hello, I've got a bunch of racing drones." And immediately, in their mind, they're like, this person is a nerd. Not a threat, just a nerd. And generally after that, it's a very easygoing process. The next thing I do, and this is super important, is as you're taking out the things that need to come out of the bag to go in the bins, you just give them a tour of everything you're leaving in the bag. So I'm pulling out my laptop and I'm taking out my cell phone out of my pocket and this and that. What I do is I point to, I just give them a tour. I say, this is my radio. I use it to control my drone. These are my goggles. This is a charger for my batteries. This is a power supply for the charger for my batteries. So on and so forth. That way, they can communicate those things to the person running the X-ray machine, and the whole process goes a lot more smoothly because they're not being caught off guard with a jumble of, bizarre electronics that they probably have never seen before. You've already, exposed them to the whole process, and generally they take that a lot more, they take it a lot better than they would if you just silently dumped all your crap out on the table and just take it off your shoes and go marching through the X-ray machine. That being said, let's take a look at everything I'm going to bring, and I'm going to show you exactly how I put it in the bag, and I get almost no trouble ever going through an airport with any of this stuff, and hopefully that is the same experience for you. So let us do that now. All right, so I'm just going to go around the table real quick, show you what everything is, and then I'm going to stuff it all in a bag and we can both carry on with our day. I have my goggles. I have the little cable that runs to the battery packs for my goggles so I can keep the batteries in my pocket. I have some propellers. I've got a quad. I've got a little tackle box with odds and ends. It's got standoffs and screws and wires and such. I've got my radio. I've got my power supply for my laptop. I've got just a spare receiver and spare antennas. Always got to have that stuff. I have my GoPro. Couple batteries for my GoPro, a couple of hex drivers. I have some needle nose pliers, some flush cutters, gotta have zip ties. I have my TS100 soldering iron. I've got the little power cable for my soldering iron. I've got solder. I've got flux. I've got my charger. I've got the power supply for my charger. I've got the power cable for the power supply for my charger. I've got these little parallel charging pigtail buddies. Vortex turned me onto these and I love them. So much easier than dealing with a parallel charging board, especially when you're traveling. They take up almost no space. You can just ball them up and stuff them somewhere. Super easy to transport and super easy to use. And I don't know, no problems yet. I've got a hard drive, at least one hard drive for footage. And I've got my laptop. And then I have what I believe to be a fair representation of just a handful of batteries that most people might bring. I usually stuff as many as I possibly can. I pack my batteries last and stuff as many as I can in there. So that's that. And I'm going to clear this table off. I'm going to throw my bag up here, and then I'm going to show you exactly how I pack it. Okay, so here's the bag. It's the same bag we probably all have. We all probably got it for Christmas. I think it's a low pro, but here's how I pack it all up. One important thing to remember is imagine that you're looking down on the bag from the X-ray machine's point of view, which is like top-down view. So what you want to avoid, if possible, is stacking things on top of one another. You want to stack things, you want to lay them out next to one another so that when they're looking straight down from up top, it doesn't look all crazy. So try your best to avoid stacking anything that's gonna go through the machine. So what I do, take my power supply for my charger that lives in this big pocket up here in the back. I take my goggles. I don't use the case just for space purposes. I prefer to be very careful with them. Those go in their own little cubby hole right here. If you're traveling, there's no better radio on the planet Earth than the FrSky X-Lite. And this is why. Boop, right there. Where's my little tackle box? Take my little tackle box with my standoffs and screws and things. That lives in its little cubby right there. I take my hard drive, or multiple hard drives. They get their own little pocket right here. So that way it looks nice and neat. Then I take my power supply from my laptop, and I take my charger, and I put them next to one another, and I slide them in this pocket right here. If you go underneath, the way it works is, with batteries, I prefer to use these little 3D printed XT60 covers. They are bright green. Green means go, go means good. I lay them next to one another, like so. And then I usually make another row here. Now, I guess technically a LipoSafe bag would be the best bet. That way you could just pull it out and throw it through the machine. I've never had any problems. A lot of times I just leave them in the bag. They don't even ask for me to take them out. As long as they're laid out side by side and easy to see, and they know what they are, then you're usually pretty good. Now I take my solder. That goes right here. I take my tub of flux. Is it a liquid? Is it a solid? I don't know. Not my job. Goes in the bag. I take my battery packs for my goggles. Those usually find a little home, like right here. This pocket here I use for odds and ends. Sometimes I put more batteries in there. We have this flap here. And the way I like to do this is I take my hex drivers. Now the TSA rule for tools in a carry-on bag is nothing longer than 7 inches. And a lot of us get these hex drivers in some sort of a toolkit or another, some sort of like a quad box or wherever. And they are about 6 3/4. So to the naked eye, they could be 7 inches. And I have had one occasion where they took them out of my bag to measure them, like against a tape measure. They have this little grub nut on them, and you could take a 2mm hex driver and loosen that little grub nut, and boop, there you go. Just drops right down, and now it is the most adorable thing a TSA agent has ever seen. Not necessary, but it gives you a little bit of peace of mind that it's a little bit, you know, you're lowering your percentages as far as being hassled is concerned. So what I do is I take the hex drivers and I just slide them side by side through these little bungee buddies. And usually you could fit 3 there comfortably before they get bunched up and scary looking. I keep on the door, I keep a little spread of spare battery straps, because nothing sucks worse than when all your quads work and you can't fly because you can't keep your batteries from falling off. So those go there. And then I use the rest of these little bungees to kind of fold up all my odds and ends. I bunch them up as neat as somebody like me possibly can. And I tuck them each under their own little strap, and they look nice and organized, which is quite a feat for somebody like me. So, and then the little goggle battery wire goes there. You could take the little power cord for your soldering iron. That could find its own little home underneath one of these as well. I got these little baby flush cutters in like a vape toolkit, and I love them. So I take those, and I take my needle nose pliers, and those just live under their own little set of bungee buddies here. Next is the laptop. This bag has this thing up top. So the laptop goes in the laptop flap. Flap top! So what I do is I leave this area open here. Right now, my entire fleet consists of these Flynoceros TAQ Edition, famous TAQ Edition Sköll V3s. And they're super compact and small and sturdy. So I throw one in there like that. Where's my other one? Oh, here's a blank one. Here's an unbuilt one. I can illustrate with that. And then I put the other one upside down on top of it, and they just lay flat, and then you could just close up the bag and easy peasy. Actually, let's just do that. because these last few steps take place on the outside. So let's flip this baby over. And on the outside of this bag, you have this pocket here, and it's got a couple of little slots here, and then it's got a big pocket right here. So this big pocket here is I take my spare receivers, my spare antennas, any little Ziploc bags full of like things that are easily lost, usually like a pack of Uma grip. All of that just goes right in there. Then I take my TS100 soldering iron. If you're really paranoid, you can undo that screw there and take out the tip and separate them and then put them in the bag. I've never had any problems at all with this soldering iron going through security. So it just lives in its own little holster right there. I always have a little thing of extra zip ties. Those go right in their own little buddy there. And that is more or less it for that. Now we have these side pockets up here, and this is usually where I stuff my GoPro. I take a couple extra GoPro batteries with me. They live in one of these little pockets, like a net pocket in there. Then I just take my GoPro and I stick it over here. I show them where it is when they send it through. If I have time, if by some miracle or magic there is nobody behind me in line, I'll take all that stuff out. Now, this pocket here, it is the 21st century, and nobody still has come up with a way to transport lots of propellers at once. So what I do is I just grab as many propellers as I possibly can, and I just stuff them in these little side pockets. And then usually I do the same on the other side. I usually bring like, I don't know, 10 sets of props with me. She's all buttoned up, good to go, and that's it. Really, like I said, just to recap, the three things you really want to know, if you take away nothing else from this video, these three things. One, always preface the whole situation as if you're just a guy with a bunch of racing drones. Doesn't matter if you race. In their mind, it's like, oh, this is the stuff I see on TV, or this is the stuff I heard about. So let them know that you have racing drones. Two, give them a tour of the entire bag. Just point at all the things that you're not taking out of the bag when you go through. Now, what you have to take out of the bag and don't have to take out of the bag, that's always, it seems very subjective. It seems to depend on the TSA agent themselves. I know that anything larger, any electronics larger than a cell phone are supposed to come out of the bag. Really, that only leaves the laptop. If you take the batteries out, nothing else has internal batteries, so it all can technically stay in. But I take out my quads, I take out my laptop. If they request, I take out the batteries. And then I show them what everything else is, even if I don't think they're going to understand it. At least they feel a little more familiar, they feel a little more welcomed, and like I said, they can communicate those things to the person running the x-ray machine, and 9 times out of 10, you breeze right through. And then also, the last thing, also very important, is stack things side by side, not on top of one another. Because you can imagine looking down on an x-ray machine and just seeing a bundle of wires and circuit boards probably is cause for alarm if your job is that of a security agent. I hope this was a little helpful. I hope you learned a little something. I hope I was able to impart a little bit of my experience onto you. And now I'm just going to put my kitchen back together before my girlfriend gets home and kicks my ass. So I appreciate you watching, and take care, safe flying, happy travels, and enjoy the holidays and such. Cheers.